My name is Ava, and I am 34 years old, living with my husband, James. We both work for the company that my father-in-law founded. Though my father-in-law has retired, he single-handedly grew a small construction company into a $250 billion annual revenue enterprise. He even acquired rival construction companies, and while he may have been forceful at times, everyone admires his incredible business acumen. James, who was chosen to follow in his father's footsteps, was raised as a pampered child and has a gentle character that I fear doesn't hold up in the harsh world of business. While gentle may sound nice, in reality, he's incredibly indecisive, and I've started to feel he isn't fit to be a husband, let alone a CEO. James has even admitted, "I'm not cut out to be a CEO. I'll probably just be a figurehead if I become one. It's easier for me that way," showing no real intention of seriously taking over the company. We've been married for 5 years, and lately I've grown frustrated with his lack of initiative. In contrast to James, I consider myself to be quite decisive, and it seems my father-in-law during his active years appreciated this about me and delegated various tasks to me. Before marrying James, I worked at a bank, so I am used to managing finances and always have the numbers in mind while working. When I got married, I quit my job at the bank and planned to become a full-time homemaker. However, my father-in-law requested that I work for the construction company instead. Shortly after I began working, my father-in-law started inviting me to participate in board meetings and sought my opinion on management matters. At first, the board members seemed skeptical about including the founder's daughter-in-law in important meetings. But as I consistently provided relevant insights, they started listening to my suggestions. Although James was also a board member, he rarely attended meetings, and this was accepted by the other board members and my father-in-law as the norm. When I returned home from a meeting one day, I found James nonchalantly watching TV. "Why didn't you attend today's meeting?" I asked angrily. "You're a key member. You should take it seriously." Without showing any remorse, he retorted, "Even if I attend, I don't really understand the discussions. Besides, the board members prefer you, so there's no problem, right?" I wondered if he was irritated by my participation in board meetings, though he made such remarks. My father-in-law has been teaching me the intricacies of running the business and seems to be grooming me as his successor. I've started enjoying being involved in management, and before I knew it, I was working hard to meet my father-in-law's expectations. About 2 years after I started attending meetings, my father-in-law retired completely. When there were major decisions to be made, the board members would consult me, while James was sidelined. I had hoped that being in such a situation would spur James to work harder, but instead, he became even more disengaged from his work. Although he would come to the office in the morning, he'd disappear somewhere by noon and just stay home for the rest of the day. When he saw me at home, he wouldn't talk about work at all, seemingly indifferent to the company's affairs. Meanwhile, my workload at the company was increasing, and I was getting busier. After my father-in-law's retirement, the board members relied on me more and more, and I was tasked with duties akin to a CEO's. Given that we're a large company with many employees, I've been committed to increasing sales and profits for the sake of our workers. With the hard work of our employees, our sales began to grow. I found running the company more interesting and became more engrossed in my work. Conversely, my husband James seemed to be losing interest in his work, and his appearances at the company began to diminish. The conversation between us at home had lessened, and our relationship began to become tense. Around that time, "I ran into your sister Megan today, and we had lunch together," James came home and casually mentioned. My sister Megan is 2 years older than me and had just divorced about 6 months ago. The cause of her divorce was infidelity on her part, which led to a big commotion when her enraged husband stormed our parents' home. So my husband, James, went to my parents' house to calm down Megan's husband in my place since I was busy with work. James, who had a gentle upbringing and a calming personality, managed to convince Megan's raging husband to leave for the time being. Later, Megan told me, "Your husband is really something. He handled my raging husband so effortlessly." She praised James. Megan's husband, in his anger, must have been disarmed by James's calm and easygoing demeanor. Megan was able to divorce her husband after paying alimony, but since this incident, she seemed to look at James differently. Until then, she seemed to have thought of James, who was not particularly attractive and is indecisive, as just a rich, pampered son. But after the incident, she seemed to believe he was a respectable business owner. Megan, now single after her divorce, probably saw James as a great catch, as she always loved wealthy men. But I, who was engrossed in work, could not imagine such a thing. Of course, my sis wouldn't have known that James is just a nominal executive who doesn't actually manage the company. Megan's ex-husband was an elite employee of a foreign company and bragged to me at their wedding. "My husband is an excellent employee with a high salary, and on top of that, he's handsome. You're jealous, aren't you?" Her ex-husband was handsome, smart, and carried a stylish vibe. I couldn't understand why she would cheat on such a wonderful husband. 3 months after hearing from James that he had lunch with Megan, I returned home to find James unusually serious. "Ava, I have something to discuss." It was the first time I had heard such words from him, and I had a bad premonition. With my heart pounding, I waited for him to speak. "Actually, Megan is pregnant with my child, and I want a divorce." I was shocked by the request for a divorce, but even more surprised to hear that Megan was pregnant. At a loss for words, James continued. "Megan is planning to come over on our next day off to discuss this, so I'm counting on you," he said, stunned. I asked him, "So you want to marry my sis?" With a troubled look, James responded, "It's not that I want to marry her, but if she's having my baby, I guess I have no choice." I sighed at James's typical indecisiveness and replied, "Well, if she's carrying your baby, I suppose it can't be helped. Let's discuss this when she comes over." It seemed like my husband and I couldn't make any decisions together, so I decided to meet directly with my sister to figure things out. Even though I had already made up my mind to divorce in my heart, I thought I needed to consult my father-in-law about the company's situation. As the daughter-in-law of the founder, I was involved in running the business, but if I divorced, I would become a stranger. The next day, I went to my in-laws' house and told my father-in-law exactly what my husband had said. My mother-in-law, who was present, was thrilled that her son had a child, but she quieted down when glared at by my father-in-law. For my mother-in-law, she seemed to be more concerned about her grandchild than the company's management. After some thought, my father-in-law said with a smile, "Ava, I want you to continue to be involved in the company's management, as you have been. I don't care about James. I'll take the responsibility, so let him do as he likes." It seems that my father-in-law values the management of the company more than his son or grandchild. Even though he has retired, my father-in-law, as the founder, still has a strong voice in the company, and most of the company's shares are held by him, so there are no executives who go against his will. I was also getting interested in my work, so I was reluctant to give up now. Now that my job was settled, it was time to discuss the future with my sister. On my day off, my sister came to my house with a big smile and said, "Ava, it's a pity you couldn't have a baby. Haha, I'll give you plenty of consolidation money. Please leave this house immediately." She said it with a triumphant air. My husband, who was just silently listening to our sister's conversation without saying anything. Despite being the one who caused the problem, I was appalled at my husband's indifferent face, and I said, "It's okay to get divorced, but there's also the issue of alimony and division of property, so let's bring in a lawyer and decide properly." I never thought of you, my sister, would fall for a man like James. I retorted to my sister with irony. My sister glared at me with a stern face for a moment, but quickly regained her composure. I finally realized it. It's not about looks and men, it's about the inside. It was funny to hear my sister talk as if she fully understood my husband's inner self, and I said, holding back my laughter, "That's great, isn't it? From now on, live happily with James." The inner self my sister was talking about might be money. She seemed to have been under the impression that my husband was the president of my father-in-law's company, but it didn't seem like she had heard anything from him. When the discussion was over, my sister said she would start living here and brought a moving company, so I only took out the necessary items. Knowing my quick-tempered sister, I had already arranged for a new apartment. I also hired a lawyer and had documents prepared for the division of property and claims for alimony. The next day, after moving out my belongings, I started negotiations for alimony and division of property with my husband and sister, accompanied by my lawyer. My husband was still present that day, sitting with an indifferent face, and only my sister was speaking. "As I said before, I'm willing to pay as much alimony as you want, so please decide at your convenience." Hearing my sister's words, my lawyer decided to also claim alimony against my sister, in addition to my husband. My sister is still paying alimony in installments to her ex-husband, so my lawyer had said in advance that it might be impossible to claim alimony from her. But since she said she would pay me as much as she wanted, I decided to make a claim. When it came to negotiations about the division of property, my sister excitedly said, "This mansion is originally James's family's, so it shouldn't be part of the division of property, right?" The lawyer answered my sister emotionlessly, "This building and the land belong to the company, so it's up to the company to decide." It seemed like even my husband thought this house belonged to his father. "Is that so? I thought this house was Dad's," he casually asked. My sister, on the other hand, was taken aback and attacked the lawyer. Wait a minute. So does that mean I can't live in this house?" The lawyer responded in a businesslike manner. "Since it's company property, you can continue to live here if the company allows it." At this comment, my sister seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. "Oh, you should have said that earlier. It'll be fine since James, the president, will be living here." The lawyer looked surprised for a moment, then burst into laughter. "What are you talking about? Ava is the president, not James." Looking at my sister, who was planning to remarry my husband, and yet didn't even know that fact, made me laugh. My sister immediately turned to my husband and yelled, "Huh? James, you're not the president?" I stepped in for my husband, who looked troubled, and explained to my sister, "James is merely an advisor, without any executive rights. I'm an executive director, but I was also made president. Our father-in-law, the founder, had always been the president, but when he retired, he made me an executive director, and even the president. The other executives also appreciated my performance, and there was no opposition. On the other hand, my husband, thanks to his father's arrangement, was receiving an executive salary as an advisor without executive rights, which is more of a pity than a mere employee. Even though it's called an executive salary, since he wasn't really doing any work, it was less than what an ordinary employee would get. So I was bearing all the living expenses. My husband, who didn't care about our household finances, didn't even care whether the house he was living in was company-owned or belonged to his father. Although our home was company-owned, my responsible father-in-law had always charged me rent, so I thought of it as a normal rental property. The lawyer, still laughing, asked me, "Can we continue to rent this house to James?" My sister reacted to the rent part of the lawyer's question. "What do you mean by rent? Are you suggesting that I take rent from James? Isn't it the company's property? Just make it free." The lawyer presented the rent amount, laughing heartily at her words. She was shocked to see the figure, and so was her husband James, who seemed to be hearing about it for the first time. "Guess a house this big does have a high rent. I can't afford that with my salary." His executive compensation would barely leave any money behind if he had to pay that rent, Their living expenses would be hard to cover. During the 5 years of their marriage, James had used up all his modest executive compensation. My salary also disappeared in high rent and living expenses. There were hardly any assets left, and splitting the savings was the only way for asset division. After the lawyer left, my sister, who now knew that the mansion she had been hoping for was actually rented, seemed utterly deflated, staring blankly. James was grinning as usual. I suggested, "Why don't we vacate this place and go back to your parents' house? Your mother was so happy about the pregnancy news." James agreed, but I laughed at the thought of why I had to consider this man, who was about to be my ex, this much. I started worrying whether this unreliable man could raise a child, but I decided to leave it as it was none of my business. I asked my sister, who seemed to have forgotten about her own alimony, "Are you okay with the alimony payment, sis? You seemed pretty confident, but you're also paying your ex-husband, right?" She was stunned to hear this, her face suddenly snapping back to reality. "Alimony? I have to pay it too?" She was astonished, seemingly having heard nothing of the discussion earlier in the day. "You said, 'I'll give plenty of alimony,' but you weren't expecting me to pay it, right? My salary's really low." James and my sister exchanged surprised glances. Though not a lawyer, watching these two made me want to burst into laughter. I had already obtained signatures on the divorce papers and alimony request documents, so it didn't matter to me, but seeing James and my sister like this was pathetic. My ex-husband, who had remarried my sister, had returned to his parents' home, just as I had warned, but there seemed to be constant quarrels between my sister and my in-laws. The main cause of the conflict was the lie about my sister being pregnant with my ex-husband's child. His mother, who was hoping for an heir, was extremely angry. My father-in-law, who had disliked my sister for stealing his son from me from the very beginning, hadn't even spoken to her. He fronted the alimony for James, and I was paid in full, but my sister, seeing this, pleaded with him. "Dad, could you please pay my alimony as well?" To this, the father-in-law responded, "I have no reason to be called Dad by you." He was fuming. Not being able to obtain anything she had hoped for, my sister ran away from my ex-husband's family home without a word and went missing. She had practically remarried the ex-husband just to bear the burden of alimony, which was utterly foolish. My ex-husband seemed to consider getting back with me, but his father scolded him. "You're the kind of man who should never even think about having a family. You can't even take care of yourself properly." I wouldn't get back with my ex-husband, even if he begged me. I had stopped believing in him when he cheated on me with my sister, and I was disgusted by his indifferent attitude during our discussions. He was dismissed from his executive position and is now working as a temporary employee. I've continued being the CEO, which is the core things in my life. I don't even think about remarrying someone. After the breakup, I've kept in touch with my father-in-law, receiving advice when needed. For now, I want to focus on the company, thinking of it as being married to it, for the sake of my employees.
This is the divorce papers. I've filled in my part.
I see.
Also, the severance pay and savings are all mine. You better apply for welfare.
We've been married 30 years. All this time I've been serving a domineering husband, even caring for his parents while being bullied by them. There's no room for compassion left for my husband, who degrades me at this divorce agreement. There's someone I'd like you to meet.
What? Did you find a new man or something?
Looking at the man sitting next to me, my husband turned pale. My name is Emily. I'm a 60-year-old housewife. I married my husband, Daniel, 30 years ago. Back then, I was in my 30s, long past my prime, to get married. I was deemed the woman left on the shelf. I thought I would have no chance getting married. But then, an arranged date was proposed. The man from the date, Daniel, was the same age as me, shy, not very good at talking with women.
I've never had a girlfriend before.
I who was also shy and had never dated a man before, sympathized with Daniel's confession. Moreover, I found Daniel, who spoke honestly without pretending to be sincere, and agreed to continue dating him. Our relationship, both in our 30s and shy, developed smoothly. Emily, will you marry me? Yes, I would love to. The year after our first date, I received a marriage proposal from Daniel, and we got happily married. Immediately after the marriage, we started living together in an apartment. Then I started to see a side of Daniel I had known before we got married. He was like the embodiment of a traditional father figure from the 80s, primarily quiet and serious. He never failed to go to work on time every morning, leaving work at the end of the day and coming back home. A domineering man, he would seriously tell me to follow 3 steps behind me. However, he occasionally came home late after drinking with his colleagues. At those times, he would act like a child saying, "I can't move anymore. Help me take my clothes off." But at the time, I even found that adorable. A year after our marriage, I became pregnant and gave birth to our daughter, Emma, when I was 32. Emma was indeed a gem of a child. After giving birth, while I was feeding Emma milk in the hospital room, Daniel suddenly suggested that we live with his parents. Once Emma grows up, our current apartment will become too small. If we live together, we can save on rent, and my mom can help look after Emma, right? It's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Thinking life would be easier for me as well, I agreed to his suggestion. But I never thought this would be the start of my misfortune. Why did you give birth to a girl? She can't be the heir. Once we started living with his parents, my mother-in-law started shaming me for giving birth to a girl. Then my father-in-law would say, "Well, if that's the case, just keep trying with Daniel every night until the boy is born," and throw inappropriate, even sexually inappropriate words at me. What's wrong with these people? Feeling pained by the words and actions directed towards me, I tried to discuss my father-in-law's situation with Daniel. However, he dismissed me, saying, "Don't bother me with such matters every time. I'm exhausted from work." And the bullying from my in-laws was a daily occurrence. Due to my introverted personality and having married late, I felt insecure and couldn't stand up to my in-laws. I had endured this for quite some time. Nearly 30 years had passed since then, and I had been caring for my in-laws. "Emily, you still haven't prepared my meal? You slowpoke." "Mother-in-law, haven't you eaten 30 minutes ago?" My mother-in-law had developed dementia and would often repeat herself. My father-in-law, on the other hand, had already become bedridden and could no longer converse properly. My husband Daniel was nowhere to be seen in this zoo-like house. "I'm home." Daniel often came home late at night and often wouldn't even eat dinner. He'd just take a bath and go straight to bed. Of course, we hadn't had a proper conversation in a long time. Once the caregiving for my in-laws is over, I can live leisurely with Daniel. Daniel was looking at retiring in about 6 months, and I was getting through the care of my in-laws by looking forward to life with Daniel after that. However, an event occurred that shattered even this ordinary dream. "Emily, can we talk?" I was called by Daniel for the first time in a while, and I hurried over to him. "What's up, Daniel?" "I've decided to quit my job." I was feeling a bit brighter due to this rare conversation with my husband, but this statement by my husband threw me into despair, as if I got thrown off by a roller coaster ride. "Huh? What do you mean?" "There's nothing to it. I've decided to quit my job this month." "What? So suddenly? Did something happen at work? You're close to retiring." Taken aback by my husband's unexpected statement, I inadvertently raised my voice, perhaps offended. Daniel retorted in a firm voice. It's my life, and there's nothing wrong with doing what I want. I've been working diligently every day. I'm fed up with this monotonous life and want to enjoy my freedom as soon as possible.
You're doing whatever you want to.
What do you mean I'm doing whatever I want? I mean, there's also the matter of caring for your parents, and I thought it would be better to save as much money as possible. I was so confused that I couldn't organize my thoughts. So the issue of the in-laws' care that I'm currently facing came to mind, and I mentioned the cost of it. I knew it. You were after my money. You've been with me for money. I won't give you a penny, not even my retirement payout. You turned out to be exactly as they said.
I was even more confused by Daniel's statement on top of my earlier confusion.
Huh? No, I mean, realistically, we don't know how long the care will continue. So that's how you're going to play dumb. Always saying caregiving when you get asked what you do with your spare time. Do you have another man, huh? What's up? What on earth is he talking about? I really didn't understand what he was saying at the time. Caring for the in-laws, who can't be left alone, there's no way I could have time for an affair. Rather, he eats what's prepared in the morning, goes to work, and at night he doesn't even touch the prepared meal, just goes straight to bed. Somehow, he's always out on his days off. Isn't it him who's living a self-centered life without lending me a hand?
Despite such thoughts, I desperately tried to clear up this misunderstanding.
No, I absolutely don't have the luxury to do that. I don't even have any spare time. Even with grocery shopping, I only spend about 30 minutes at the nearby market. It's only because they are the parents of my beloved husband that I'm doing this much, even sacrificing my time to care for my in-laws. Why can't Daniel understand that? It was so perplexing. Shut up. There are people who say they've seen you walking with a man, and I'll never forgive you. Daniel's accusations over something I really had no memory of pushed me to the brink of confusion. And then the accumulated fatigue caused me to feel dizzy. I can't handle this anymore. I need to get out of here for a bit. Feeling dizzy, I managed to grab my regular handbag and jacket, then ran towards the front door. See, you're going to meet that man, aren't you? Isn't that right? Daniel continued hurling insults until I put on my sandals at the entrance and opened the door to step outside. I ran out of the house for about a mile till his voice faded. I was so shocked that I even forgot to breathe. When I couldn't hear Daniel's voice anymore and walked a bit in the night breeze, I pondered on what to do next. But my thoughts were jumbled, and though I hesitated, I ended up calling Emma, my daughter who's currently living alone. Hello, Mom? It's been a while. The moment Emma answered the phone, tears started flowing uncontrollably. Mom, your father... I couldn't stop sobbing and could not manage to articulate the situation to Emma. Whoa, Mom, what happened? Are you okay? Calm down. Let's start by calming down, okay? Emma, sensing my distress, tried to soothe me. After walking a bit, I found a park and decided to take a break on a bench. I was sobbing so much that I couldn't speak, but Emma kept me on the line, checking on me. Emma, I'm sorry. I must have surprised you, calling out of the blue. After a few tens of minutes, I managed to calm down and started speaking again. No, it's okay. Where are you now? I'm at M Park near our house right now. Oh, I remember playing there a lot when I was a kid. Is Zest, the diner, still there? I looked up and saw the sign of the chain diner across the street. Yes, it's still there. Okay, I'll come pick you up. So just go into the diner and wait for me. You can order something if you want. I'll pay for it. Okay, I'll wait there. Thank you. Feeling my daughter's kindness, I entered the diner. After about an hour, Emma arrived at the diner. Mom, something serious must have happened. You were crying so much. Emma, thank you. Your father said something terrible to me. I told Emma about what had happened earlier. Emma listened to my story with a serious gaze, intently watching me. When I finished speaking, she sat quietly thinking for a while. Then after finishing the coffee she had ordered upon arrival, she turned to me. Mom, first of all, stay at my place starting from today. You don't need to go back to that place. Also, there are a few things I'm curious about, so why don't we head back to my place for a bit, she said. I felt grateful for how strong and dependable my daughter had grown up to be. Although I was worried about caring for my in-laws, I was exhausted and couldn't go on. I decided to rest and rely on Emma for today. Thank you. I'll take you up on your offer, I said. As we left the cafe, Emma took my hand and hailed a taxi to head back to her apartment. Emma was currently working as a writer for a camping magazine. She always enjoyed camping and often does solo camping trips, sharing her experiences on her blog and social media. Originally, she worked as a corporate employee for a general trading company, but with the recent boom in camping, she was scouted via her social media and decided to switch to being a freelance writer. I guess this career as a writer suits her temperament. Nowadays, she contributes articles to magazines not only about camping, but on various topics, making a living. You've always devoted yourself to Dad and the in-laws, Mom. It's unthinkable that they would suspect you now, she said. As we turned off the lights and settled in for the night, Emma began speaking to me. You know, ever since I was little, I thought the way the in-laws treated you was odd, she said. It was clear from the way she referred to my in-laws, calling them the in-laws rather than by their names, that she didn't harbor any good feelings towards them. Moreover, Dad's attitude toward you is strange, too. He treats you like a maid, and even if the in-laws are being mean to you, he doesn't help at all, she added. I was surprised by how well Emma understood the dynamics of our household. Belatedly, I was astonished by my daughter's insightful ability. But your father is busy, I said, trying to defend him. That's the thing that's bothering me, she replied. What do you mean, bothers you? Oh, don't worry about it, Mom. You're tired today. Let's just sleep. Huh? Yes, you're right. I am utterly worn out today. See? You can relax now. Good night. Yes, good night. 3 days after, I started staying at Emma's. I was preparing dinner when Emma, who had been out on a reporting assignment, came home. Oh, what a wonderful smell. Your cooking always smells the best, Mom. Oh, it's been years since I heard you say that. Let's eat while it's hot, I replied. Emma washed her hands and sat at the table. I served the loaded potato soup and sat down as well. Emma finished her plate in no time, happily praising the taste as she ate. After the dishes away, she brought out a coffee and an envelope, sitting back at the table. Then she began to speak with a serious expression. Mom, please stay calm when you hear this. Actually, I hired a detective to track and investigate what Dad has been doing these past 3 days. I was so surprised that I choked on my soup. Huh? Investigate Dad? What do you mean? Well, after listening to your stories, there were some things that got me curious. Like, why does Dad always come home late? And who was the one who tattled about you walking with a man? Seems like Emma's innate insight caught up with Daniel's strange behavior. Being a writer, she had a broad network of connections. This time, her private investigator was also someone she got to know from her connection. Please calm down and listen. According to the report from the investigator, it turns out that Dad was having an affair with another woman. What? I felt my mind go blank. Not only did Daniel suspect me of cheating, but he himself was having an affair. Emma showed me the reports and photos that she had received from her contact. Indeed, there was a picture of Daniel arm in arm with a woman looking quite intimate. This woman's name is Lily, and she's 51 years old. She works at a bar that Dad goes to near our house. Even though Lily is 51, she looked like she's in her 40s, wearing a flamboyant dress with a black background and a pattern of red roses. Dad has been going to that bar every day for years and seems to have become quite close with Lily. Emma relayed the investigator's report to me in a matter-of-fact manner. Can you believe he would betray us like this? While Mom is busy taking care of Grandma and Grandpa, every day he's out having an affair with another woman. Indeed, it's unbelievable. I have been living on the edge without any spare time to even consider such things. I thought I might have been at fault when Daniel suspected me of having an affair, but now anger is welling up inside me at Daniel's cold actions. It seems that for the past 3 days, Dad has been hanging out at Lily's house. Apparently, he's hired someone to take care of Grandma and Grandpa, and it seems it's not even a professional caregiver. He's left his own parents entirely in the hands of someone who's not even a professional caregiver while he's out enjoying himself with his mistress. I'm so disappointed to think that I've loved such a man until now. I didn't know Daniel was like this. I can't believe it. Right. Seeing how Dad is, I've never really had a good impression of marriage. I'm sorry, but it's always seemed more like an employer-employee relationship between you and him. You're right, Emma. I've woken up now. I want to divorce that man and take revenge. Okay, if that's the case, I'll help you. From there, we, as a mother-daughter team, began to prepare our revenge against Daniel and Lily. First, we asked the private investigator who had caught Daniel in the act of the affair to continue gathering evidence. Then we received definitive proof, such as a photo of Daniel and Lily boldly kissing on the street in front of the bar where Lily works. I can't believe he can do something so shameful without any shame. Additionally, the private investigator who had infiltrated the bar recorded a conversation between Daniel and Lily. Has your wife left and not come back? It's refreshing without that boring woman around. She's probably with the man you mentioned. But aren't you worried that your daughter might demand your retirement fund? There's no way she would have the guts to say such things. She's even resigned from a large corporation and stooped down to some trifling job. She probably doesn't even know that she can claim some amount. Hey, you're right. I'll book that luxury hotel right away with your severance pay. Looking at the city lights at night. Oh, how exciting. Are you coming over tonight? Yeah, of course. Each time evidence like this surfaced, I harbored resentment for Daniel, mixed with anger. Once I gathered enough such evidence, I went to consult with a lawyer about divorce. Given your husband's clear infidelity, you can naturally claim compensation for emotional distress and a share of property. The lawyer mentioned that I could also demand compensation from Daniel's mistress, Lily. Furthermore, as Daniel had neglected my in-laws' care and forced it all onto me, it seemed I could request compensation for that. Now we need some proof to rebut the claim that you are having an affair with another man. To prove that I was not having an affair, I got a recorded data from the surveillance camera that we used to monitor our in-laws. This was something Emma had installed when she returned home 2 years ago. To slightly alleviate my burden, she had it professionally installed. I had Emma set it up so I could watch the footage on my phone, but I couldn't figure out how to use it, and I totally forgotten that we even had one. According to Emma, the data captured by surveillance camera is stored in a distant data center for 365 days. Since Emma had contracted the service and was taking care of the monthly payments, Daniel had no knowledge of the camera's existence. Emma operated the computer and obtained the recorded data. Playing back the data made it clear how I was essentially housebound due to caregiving duties. The recordings also captured the verbal abuse I was receiving from my in-laws. There's also a perfect recording when you stormed out of the house. They really had some nerve, didn't they? Being traumatized, I couldn't bring myself to watch it, but Emma, who had seen it, was visibly livid. After making these preparations, and just as we were about to strike, I received a call from Daniel. "Hey, Emily, when are you going to stop wandering about? We need to talk. Come to the local Zest at 3 p.m. this Sunday." Without a care of my well-being, Daniel merely relayed his message. "Yes, understood." I quickly responded and hung up the phone. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll be with you." With that, Emma made a call to the lawyer. Then Sunday at 3 p.m. arrived. Emma and I, who had arrived at Zest on time, searched for Daniel. However, there was no sight of Daniel, so we took our seats and waited for him. Perhaps we waited about an hour. I spotted Daniel outside the restaurant entrance. However, there was also a woman next to him. That must be Lily. Despite it still being daylight, Daniel shamelessly hugged the woman before parting ways. With a smug look on his face, Daniel opened the door and entered the restaurant. Upon spotting us, he promptly sat down in front of us. "Oh, Emma, you're here too." Unbothered by our glares, Daniel right out began to speak. "Emily, I've decided to divorce you." "Is that so?" Daniel looked slightly surprised at my rather dry response. "This is the divorce paper. I've already filled it out." "Understood." I promptly received the divorce paper. "And the retirement money and savings are all mine," Daniel said. "No, that's entirely selfish. I will rightly receive alimony and a division of property," I responded. "You were just after my money, weren't you? It's disappointing, but I don't plan to give you a single penny. You should rely on welfare to live." We had been married 30 years. All this time, I had served my domineering husband, even taking care of his parents, who were always treating me poorly. Yet my husband, who'd been lusting over some cheap woman, continued to provoke me on this divorce agreement. I no longer have mercy for this guy and his mistress. "Actually, there's someone I'd like you to meet," I said. "Huh, what? You found a new man?" The man sitting next to me made Daniel pale. "Daniel, your wife was telling the truth," he said. "Why is the department head here?" This man was the head of the department at the company where Daniel worked. "I was contacted by a lawyer acting as your wife's representative. She said that you were likely to get a divorce due to your infidelity. She also expressed concern that you would quickly spend your retirement money with your mistress and asked for a temporary withholding of your retirement fund." "Emily, you even told people at work?" Daniel, surprised to the point of bulging his eyes, was interrupted by the department head. "It's our first time dealing with an incident like this. I received a call from your wife's attorney about having a discussion today. Considering that the notice of seizure might be fraudulent, I decided to join since I wanted to confirm the truth." "Despite your own infidelity, you falsely accused me of cheating to evade paying alimony. That's why I took measures to prevent it." "What? You're saying I cheated? Do you have any evidence?" Then my lawyer brought in Lily, Daniel's mistress. "I'm Emily's lawyer. Lily here is also related to the case, so I had her come over." Upon confirming the situation, Daniel's department head left and the lawyer took a seat next to me. "I'm here to claim $60,000 in alimony from Daniel for his adultery and for imposing the care of his parents on Emily, and $30,000 from Lily for engaging in adultery with Daniel, despite knowing he was married and causing Emily's marriage to break down." As soon as the lawyer explained in a businesslike manner, Lily slapped Daniel. "You liar! Leave it to me, you said. And now I'm also taking the fall." Daniel, his face red, started to sob. "I didn't know Emily was this smart." I watched the ugly squabble of these two with cold eyes, regretting the 30 years I'd spent with this man. Due to the chaotic situation, we showed evidence of Daniel and Lily's affair and adjourned the meeting. Later, I heard from her lawyer that Lily and her parents had visited the law office to agree to the payment of alimony. Seeing Daniel's pathetic face at the restaurant, Lily's feeling for him died, and she broke up with him. On the other hand, the lawyer thought Daniel would request a reduction, but apparently he didn't. Of course, if he doesn't pay, we would take it from his seized retirement fund. I wondered if he was screaming in pain from having to take care of his parents. I have not taken care of them since then. I only took good care of them because I loved Daniel, and they were his parents. But without that love, I could no longer bear the unpaid labor in that hell. Daniel has always been dumping his responsibilities on me. It's only natural that Daniel should take on the role of caregiving. The elderly care surveillance Emma had installed was removed by a contractor the day of their meeting at the diner, so there's no way he would know what was going on. I ended up moving into Emma's place. I was only able to get back at my husband thanks to Emma. It's always been said that children are treasures, but to me, Emma feels more like an angel than a treasure. With this incident, I managed to distance myself from Daniel's family and painfully realized how little attention I was able to give Emma. As her mother, I plan on making up for that by spending time with Emma and creating many more memories with her.
My name is Amy Clark, a 28-year-old office worker. Currently, I work at my father's construction company. I'm getting married soon. The groom-to-be is George Brown, a classmate from college who confessed his feelings to me. We started dating and now we live together. George works at a company in New York City, while I work at my father's local company. He commutes by train, but I use a car to commute. Now, with our wedding just 3 months away, I'm spending my days busy with preparations. George usually gets home around 7 p.m., so I take care of our meals. On his days off, George helps by cleaning our apartment and the bathroom. I love cars, especially driving them. Because of my father's company, I even have a crane license. Despite standing at only 5'1" and having a baby face, I often surprise people when I operate a crane at a construction site in my work clothes. But I find it amusing to see their reactions. One day, I was about to drive out for shopping. Accompanying me was my best friend, Megan Flynn. We've been best friends since elementary school and even went to the same college. She's a confidant with whom I can share anything. We plan to visit a recently opened outlet mall in the next state, which was a bit far, but we thought it would be a nice drive. I headed to the convenience store where we decided to meet up and met Megan there. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Did you wait long?" "No, I just bought a coffee. Want some, Amy?" Megan's coffee looked tasty, so I took her up on the offer. "Thanks. Could you grab one for me too? I'll set the navigation system." "Okay." Happily obliging, Megan went back into the convenience store. I began to set up the car's GPS and accidentally pressed the history button. "Darn it, this touch panel is so sensitive," I muttered, trying to switch the screen back. But then I noticed a surprising entry in the history. The name was Hotel Lovely Chateau. What's this? Of course, I'd never searched for such a thing before. This is my car, but George occasionally uses it too. George must have used it. Well, no biggie, I thought, not paying much attention to it at the time, and continued setting my destination. Today, Megan and I were heading towards an outlet mall that just opened in the neighboring state, which is a bit of a drive away. We quickly got on the highway. The weather was great, making for a pleasant drive. Near an exit ramp, Megan suddenly pointed out, Look, Lovely Chateau Hotel. What a cheesy name for a hotel these days. Lovely Chateau? the hotel from the search history earlier? While driving, I couldn't take a good look, but there was indeed a big sign saying Lovely Chateau Hotel. That's indeed cheesy. We laughed together, but I couldn't help but feel a bit concerned because of its name in the search history. After finishing our shopping with Megan and dropping her home, I returned home alone. Once I arrived home, I checked the car navigation system again. Lovely Chateau Hotel. As I searched the name, it indeed showed the location near that exit ramp. It was definitely that hotel. It was undeniably one of those types of hotels. I couldn't help but wonder why George had searched for that hotel. I decided to keep a close eye on George's activities. I decided to install a dash cam in my car. I discussed it with George and he agreed, saying, "Why not? A lot of people have them these days. It's good for safety too. But in return, you have to pay for it, Amy. It's your car after all," he said. Although the car is in my name, George also uses it, so he ended up contributing a bit to the cost. The next day, after work, I drove straight to the dealership and had a dash cam installed. The dash cam comes with cameras facing the front and back, and one that records the interior of the car. The recording time is 5 hours, after which it overwrites previous footage. I also decided to add a GPS logger while I was at it. This device records the vehicle's movements via GPS. Then, after George had used the car, I checked the dashcam footage and GPS logger data. I mainly use the car for commuting, so George typically uses it on his days off. Of course, he always asks me for permission in advance. One weekend, George approached me asking, "Can I use the car this Saturday?" "Sure, but where are you going?" I asked. He replied, "I'm planning to go to the shopping mall you went to last week. A friend wants to check it out." Who's his friend?" "Just a colleague from work. Lives pretty close by." "Is this friend a woman?" "No way, man. He's a buff guy, even bulkier than me." All right then. Bring me back a souvenir." "Gotcha, Amy. I bet you'd like something edible." "Yeah, I'd love something sweet." "All right, got it." Then came the weekend. As planned, George left on Saturday and returned in the evening. I had been waiting for him to come back, and I used the excuse of having left something in the car to go and retrieve the memory card and the GPS logger. After George went to bed, I checked the data from the GPS logger and the memory card. The GPS logger showed he did go to the shopping mall. However, it also revealed that he had taken a detour on the way back, exiting at an interchange. Upon enlarging the location, it was the Lovely Chateau Hotel. This seemed completely suspicious. Our wedding is next month, and now this? My fingers were trembling as I operated the device. This was already a huge shock, but I composed myself and checked the memory card. I inserted it into the computer and played back the recorded content. Suddenly, a strange woman appeared on the screen, sitting in the passenger seat. She was quite flashy, with long hair, and seemed pretty. She appeared to be older than me, but her occasional smile was somewhat childish. Unable to think straight, I just stared at the screen, completely shocked. The conversation was also recorded. "Really, you're such a bad boy. You're getting married next month, and you're still doing things like this?" She laughed. "It's all good. The reason I'm marrying her is because her dad's the boss. He's a construction contractor, but he's loaded." George's voice resonated from the playback. "Oh, but once you're married, doesn't that mean we're over?" "No way. You're the real deal for me. I plan on divorcing her after a year or so. Of course, I'll make it look like she's the bad one, and I'll grab a hefty alimony and her parents' wealth. After that, I'll be with you." Wait a whole year? "No, we'll continue this relationship in the meantime. I can't bear to be away from you, even for a day." "That makes me happy. I love you, George." "I love you too, Grace." I stopped the playback. I couldn't watch it any further. George had been unfaithful, cheating, and he was marrying me just to take over my father's company? The proposal he made, the birthday we spent at the Seaview Hotel, everything was a farce. Why? Tears blurred my view of the computer screen. The next day, I told him I had to prepare for the wedding, so I would be going back to my parents' home for a while. George replied without much thought, "Okay." Perhaps he was even pleased that I was going to be gone. To my parents, I said, "I feel a bit nervous and I want to stay with you guys for a bit. Please, let me cool off." They seemed to think I was having pre-wedding jitters. They welcomed me back happily. After a couple of days passed, I received a message from my best friend, Megan. I felt I could tell Megan the truth. I told Megan everything. Megan said, "Okay, I'll come over tonight. Let's drink until dawn." Despite her cute face, Megan had some boyish qualities, but I loved that about her. I told my parents that it was a last-minute bachelorette party. Soon enough, Megan showed up with bags full of drinks and snacks. "Mom, I'm borrowing Amy for the night. It might get a bit loud, so please bear with us." Megan began cracking jokes as soon as she arrived. "Oh dear, I see you're all chatterboxes, but don't drink too much, okay? I made some stew, so take it and eat it." Her mother thoughtfully prepared some snacks as well. "Wow, thank you. The wonderful smell earlier was the stew, wasn't it? I'll gratefully accept this. Oh, by the way, may I invite another friend over?" "Sure. Go ahead and make it a party that Amy will remember." "Thank you so much." And with that, she called over another friend, Jane. She was a high school classmate. Interestingly, she's a wedding planner at the venue we've booked and will be reuniting as she's overseeing our wedding. She went to the same high school as Megan, and they've met several times, so they're good friends now. The party started with the three of us. I showed the two of them the dash cam footage. Then Megan said, "Oh, I know this person. She's Grace, a junior from our college club. Amy wouldn't know because she wasn't in the club, but both George and I were in the club with her." I was astounded by this revelation. Wait, George's junior? I thought she was older than me. She always seemed mature for her age, but who would have thought it's Grace? She's invited to the wedding. Most of the club members will be there. Megan said while poking a radish from the stew. "But this situation is frustrating, isn't it? I want to get back at her somehow," Jane says, crushing an empty beer can. She's always had a strong sense of justice and even caught a groper during high school, handing him over to the police. She was enraged as if it were her own matter. Accepting Jane's words of revenge, Megan started talking. "Let's ruin the wedding then. I have a plan," Megan said, preparing a piece of paper and starting to write something down. "What do you think, Jane? Your cooperation is essential. Please, help Amy." "Of course, I'm the planner for this wedding, so I can make anything happen." Jane, being the planner, joining our side certainly boosts the success rate of our plan. "Great, you're reliable." "Hey, both of you, you've had too much to drink." And thus the plan was formed. I covered the two of them who fell asleep from drinking too much with blankets and whispered, "Thank you, Megan, Jane." Despite having too much to drink myself, I felt a bit relieved. The next day, I returned to George's place. Several days after I got home, I put my first plan into action. While watching that recorded video, it was Megan who found it. One day after work, I decided to dine out. I met George at the station, drove him to the diner in my car, and we had a meal. And when we got home, I let George out first, and I returned to the room after parking my car. Then I boldly went to the living room and was deeply moved, saying, "George, to prepare something like this for me without even telling me." "Huh?" George made a strange sound in response to my sudden words. "Isn't this a gift for me? I found it in the car." Saying this, I showed George the paper bag containing a luxury brand bag. The brand name was boldly printed on the paper bag. I was going to clear the rear window of the car because it was dirty. When I tried to pull out the cleaning tools from the floor under the rear, this was in there. "Oh, George, you hid it there to surprise me, didn't you?" "Sorry, I found it." I pretended to be innocent and acted even more delighted. No, that is..." George fumbled his words. Do you have someone else to send such a thing to?" "Don't be silly. I have no one but Amy." "Right, you bought it for me, didn't you? How much did this expensive thing cost? Around $2,000? Thanks, honey." Yeah, it's a limited edition, so I think it was $5,000. Well, I thought this would suit Amy, so I bought it. I really intended to surprise you, but, well, it didn't go as planned. Yes, it seems a bit youthful, but I can still pull it off, right? Of course. Any bag would look good on you, Amy. Hey, that doesn't sound like a compliment. Sorry. Okay, I'll keep it safe. Thanks a lot. When I heard his last sigh, I could hardly hold back my laughter. In the video from that party, I saw George being urged by Grace to buy a luxury bag, and then confirmed that he had bought a high-end bag and hid it in the floor of the back of the car. I found it, and I got it instead. During dinner later, George was sighing. Serves him right. And a few days later, I got a call from my father. It seems like my father's bad habits have surfaced once again. Believe it or not, he's gone and bought a new car. He's always had a thing for cars, and he's driven quite a few over the years. Apparently, on his way home from work, he pulled over at a used car dealership and spotted a gem of a car he used to admire. On a whim, he bought it right then and there. Dad, didn't Mom get mad at you? Yeah, sure she did, but that's no biggie. Listen to this. It's a discontinued Type R. It's a car I've always wanted. I thought if I let this one slip, I might never get my hands on it, so I bought it on the spot. I can hardly wait to get it delivered. Really? You never think about the consequences? What you are going to do with your current car? Oh, I'll give it to you. It's still in great shape. It can hold its own against the flimsy cars these days. That hatchback, right? I suppose I have grown a bit tired of the car I've been driving. Just sell that one. How can you enjoy driving such a weak automatic car? But that's when it hit me. Okay, got it. I'll do that. Thanks, Dad. Yeah, the new car arrives next week. You can pick it up then. I'll have it cleaned for you. Okay, but this is the last of your indulgences, right, Dad? Don't say that. A man's dreams never end. All right, thanks, Dad. I hung up the phone and couldn't help but grin. And so, my car changed within a few days. Amy, did you change your car? This one looks cooler than the last one. Yeah, my dad bought a new car and gave me his old one. It's cooler than the previous one, isn't it? Yeah, it's cool. Lend it to me this Saturday. Sure, why not? I felt like a fish had taken the bait. And then came Saturday. George, who had left with the car keys, came back immediately. Hey, that car. What's wrong? It won't start? No, I can't drive it. You can't drive it? Well, what's the matter? You drove it just fine yesterday, didn't you? That's because it's a stick shift. So what's the problem with that? It's just that I only have an automatic license. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. This is not funny. I can't drive now. That's a problem. I need to be able to drive. Why is that a problem? Do you want me to drive for you? No, that's not... I don't want to spoil your day off. Really? I don't mind, though. No, I'll figure it out. All right, then. Safe travels. I knew very well he couldn't. Serves him right. Figure it out. The car I got from my father was a stick shift. There was no problem for me since I have a manual license. However, George only had an automatic license. He legally can't drive that car, and he probably wouldn't know how to drive it anyway. I had already figured out that he's been taking the car on weekly dates. Despite knowing that, I still switched cars. It's my car in my name, and I can do whatever I want with it. Here, too, I say, serves him right. Then, with just 1 week to go until our wedding, I received a message and was summoned to a designated location. Hello, my name is Amy, I greeted. Oh, Amy, thank you for coming. The other party responded. Not a problem, so how did it go? Well, please sit down. We'll discuss everything shortly. With that, I was ushered into a meeting room and sat down. Let's first discuss your request. Yes, this was a private investigation agency. I had requested a background check on George. The subject, George Brown, was definitely in the wrong. We have secured photos and videos. Would you like to see them? Yes, please. With that, the man pulled out a laptop, inserted a USB drive, and started playing a video. In it, 2 people were playfully walking arm in arm. They entered a hotel. The date and time of the video were from a Saturday afternoon 2 weeks ago. There were also photos of them kissing, embracing, and more. Thank you, this is enough. I then received the documents and left the office. Honestly, I knew about the affair, but seeing it so blatantly presented was hard. I contacted my friends Megan and Jane and arranged to meet at a pub. I secured a private room, showed them the documents I received earlier, and we started our analysis. Oh man, this is clear-cut evidence. This one's quite something too, they chimed. I have lost all sympathy. I'll bring him down completely. With that, I took a big gulp of my beer. Hey Amy, could you lend me these? Huh? What for, Jane? I was already planning to make a slideshow of the bride and groom, so it would be easy to include these. Okay, all that's left is to get ready for the big day. With that, Megan raised her beer mug and gave me a toast. To us, let's give it our all. I was so touched that everyone was going all out for me that I felt like crying, but I held it back. And so the big day finally arrived, the day of the wedding. It was a hectic morning, busy to say the least. Upon arriving at the wedding venue, I was immediately ushered into makeup and wardrobe amongst other preparations. Regardless of my state of mind, everything moved along as planned. When I saw myself in the mirror, donning the white wedding gown, I was brought to tears. Despite this being the very image I had once dreamed of, I never thought I'd be wearing it with this feeling. My mother, noticing my tears, gently said, "Oh dear, the bride shouldn't be crying already," as she wiped my tears away. "I'm sorry, Mother, but these weren't tears of joy." The ceremony ended and the reception began. Just before making my entrance, I caught sight of Jane, who gave me a comforting smile. George was cheerful and smiling right from the start, while I could only manage an awkward smile. The reception proceeded without a hitch, as planned. Then came the moment for the bride's farewell letter to her family. The hall darkened, and a spotlight fell only on me and my parents at the head table. I was handed a microphone, but instead of reading my letter, I turned to face the crowd and began to speak softly. "Everyone here today, thank you very much for joining us. Normally, at this point, I should be saying goodbye to my parents and expressing my gratitude for marrying the man I love, but..." A stunned silence swept through the crowd as I broke from tradition. Jane, off to the side of the stage, gave me an encouraging thumbs up. "The real bride is not me," I declared, causing an immediate stir among the guests. "The real bride is Grace Davis, a junior from George's college years. George has admitted that it's not me, but her who he truly loves. I have evidence." After speaking, a spotlight shone on one person in the crowd, and there was Grace, bathed in light. A lively music started playing, and a slideshow began. Images of them holding hands, kissing, and even entering a hotel were displayed, one after another. Then the music stopped, and a video of their conversation played at a loud volume. The hall was in an uproar. "What's going on here? George, you owe us an explanation." Amidst the flying shouts, I handed the microphone to a pale-faced George and bowed to his parents before stepping off the stage. Megan and Jane, who had rushed over, practically dragged me away from the venue. Behind me, the situation had become an unmanageable uproar. Still in my dress, I was led to an unused green room by Jane. Megan brought me my belongings and clothes, and I quickly changed before leaving the wedding venue. Megan drove me home, and I was finally able to catch my breath. "We did it." "Yeah, we sure did." Despite causing such a commotion, I felt oddly exhilarated. After spilling the beans at that wedding, I packed my bags and returned home. I received quite a scolding from my parents when they got home, but since George was the cause of the issue, it wasn't too severe. Father took care of the aftermath. In the end, the wedding was almost over but was called off, so there were issues like returning the gifts. People understood the situation, so everything went smoothly without any significant issues. The one who had a hard time was George. His infidelity got exposed, and the wedding became a mess. As a result, his parents had to bear the entire cost. On top of that, his boss was present, so the whole company came to know about it. The fact that George had been contacting Grace during work hours using the office email was also discovered, and George was demoted. He didn't lose his job, but with all the commotion he caused, he couldn't possibly work comfortably. Unable to handle the office atmosphere, he soon quit. As for Grace, the other party, she didn't end up with George after causing all that commotion. It seems they broke up eventually. As the engagement had been broken off after we had exchanged betrothal gifts, I asked George for compensation and other costs. George had used most of his savings on wedding day preparations, so his parents had to step in and pay. George, lacking any particular skills, had trouble finding a new full-time job. It seems he's now working part-time to pay back his debts. I also demanded compensation from Grace, his affair partner. As she had a bad reputation and was disowned by her parents, she had to pay the compensation herself, but she didn't have any savings, so she borrowed money from some shady loan sharks. Now she's working in the nightlife industry to make those payments. It's not enough compared to the emotional pain I suffered, but, well, it serves them right. Thanks to Father's compassion, I was put on leave, and with my newfound free time, I decided to take a trip to Alaska. For some reason, people tend to head north in times like these. Jane had also resigned from the wedding venue, taking responsibility for her part in the commotion. Feeling a bit guilty, I decided to invite her to join me on the trip to Alaska. With the damages I received from George, I covered the expenses. We used a ferry for our round trip, as we went by car. On the return ferry, we hit it off with two guys who were bikers. We exchanged contact information and decided to meet up again in New York. The two guys who worked at the same company said they go on a road trip to Alaska on their motorcycles every year. When I got back to New York and told Megan about this, she got upset that I didn't invite her. So it was decided that we would add one more person and organize a 3-on-3 mixer, including Jane. Even though a lot has happened, I've regained my spirit. Life throws curveballs, but I thought, well, such things happen. And with that, I decided to walk firmly towards the future.
I've been asked to look after my sister's child starting next week.
I had finally entered my second trimester and was beginning to feel some ease. All of a sudden, my husband came up with an outrageous idea. Take care of your sister-in-law's child? I'm pregnant, remember? Despite my objections, my husband insisted.
You're in your second trimester, aren't you?
Right from the start, he seemed all too ready to push everything onto me. For the sake of the child I'm carrying, I can't take any more. That's when I decided to call a certain person. My name is Anna, 28 years old. It's been almost 3 years since I married my husband, Max. Right now, I'm pregnant with our long-awaited first child. As soon as I found out I was pregnant, I quit my job and became a full-time homemaker. I had initially planned to work until maternity leave, but the severity of my morning sickness made me give up. Thinking that taking irregular days off would be an inconvenience to my employer, I resigned, albeit reluctantly. Last week, I finally entered my second trimester. My morning sickness, which had been so unbearable, has significantly improved, and I'm able to eat to a certain extent. I thought I could finally have a peaceful pregnancy. That's what I believed. Then, one day, as I was preparing dinner, my husband received a phone call. With a grimace on his face, he weakly responded,
What? Starting next week? So suddenly? Yeah, I suppose. Okay, I got it.
He seemed deeply troubled. After he hung up, he dropped his shoulders and let out a heavy sigh.
Seriously?
What's wrong? Who is that?
It was my sister.
Your sister? What about her? At my question, my husband made a face.
We're going to be looking after my sister's child starting next week.
What?
So that's why we're taking care of them.
Hold on a minute. What are you saying all of a sudden?
Summer break starts next week, right? My sister said,
I need some peace and quiet. Could you take care of the kids? He made it sound like it was no big deal. It was infuriating. I found my anger bubbling up as I faced him, and I had to speak up. Hey, I'm pregnant, you know? Do you understand that? And your sister's kids, they're 3 boys, right?
Yeah, I know, but you're in your second trimester, aren't you?
What? Is he serious? The second trimester just means some of the early worries have lessened than before. It's not like I can do anything without worry now. His words irked me, and I blurted out my feelings. I don't care about being in my second trimester. Being pregnant means my condition is different than usual, you know. There's no way I can take care of your sister's kids in this state.
Well, what can we do? She said it wouldn't be a lot of trouble.
So, you're going to ignore how I feel. How can you just say okay on your own?
You're so annoying. Think of it as a parenting rehearsal.
A rehearsal? 1 elementary school student and 2 preschoolers? You think I can take care of 3 rambunctious boys right now?
Well, that's...
Cornered by my harsh questions, Max could only look down, guilty. When will this end? I asked, to which he replied something else I couldn't believe.
The duration is, about 2 weeks.
What? 2 weeks? That's way too long. Are you out of your mind?
She's the one who said it. What can I do? If you have any complaints, tell her, not me.
You keep saying,
my sister this, my sister that.
Don't you have your own opinion, Max? Are you going to prioritize your sister's demands over your pregnant wife?
Well, I can't help it. She's scary when she's mad.
What kind of reason is that? Max has an older sister, Annie, who is 5 years older. Despite being almost 30, Max seems to be completely under her thumb. It must be the age difference as well as Annie's strong personality. He always prioritizes her wishes first. Every time I heard about it, I couldn't help but feel pathetic. Up until now, I would have just resigned myself, saying, well, it's just the usual, can't help it. But the circumstances are different now. If anything happens to the baby in my belly, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. This time, I have to prevent it at all costs. With a firm resolve, I confronted Max firmly. Please tell Annie no.
But it's already decided.
I don't care. What if something happens to the baby? Can you take responsibility?
Why does it have to be like that? Consider my position too.
Huh? Don't joke with me. I object. You better say no.
If you're so insistent, Anna, you should tell Annie yourself. I can't do it.
Max locked himself in his room as if to escape. What's with that attitude? Prioritizing his sister over his pregnant wife? Can such a thing even happen? Anyway, I have to refuse Annie as soon as possible. I immediately tried to call Annie, but there was no sign of her answering. Why? Why isn't she picking up? Annie, who knows my strong-willed nature well, probably thinks it's a done deal once the kids arrive here. Despite calling numerous times afterwards, Annie never answered the phone. She herself has been pregnant and given birth to 3 kids. Why doesn't she understand my feelings? Despite this, how can she think it's okay to hoist her children on me, a pregnant woman, for 2 whole weeks? I could not understand her mindset at all. There's another reason I'm so resistant. That's because I've actually taken care of Annie's 3 sons before. Even though I was taking care of them with my mother-in-law, it was really tough. They ran around the house, shrieked, and threw food everywhere. Even when I wasn't pregnant, it was tremendously challenging to take care of them. There's no way I could handle them in my current state. In fact, my sister-in-law's children are probably even more energetic than they were before. The mere thought filled me with dread. The next day and the day after that, I repeatedly negotiated with my husband. Max, please, can you tell your sister that we can't watch the kids?
But if you're so bothered, why don't you just tell her yourself?
I've tried calling her, but she doesn't pick up. She's clearly avoiding my calls on purpose.
How am I supposed to know?
What do you mean, how are you supposed to know? What am I supposed to do if she won't answer the phone? That's why I'm asking you, Max, to talk to her for me.
You're being too persistent. It's already been decided that we're watching them. Just accept it.
That's nonsense. In the end, my husband never got in touch with his sister, and the day the kids were due to arrive kept getting closer. 2 days before the children were to arrive, when my husband came home from work, I confronted him again. You've given up on declining your sister's request to watch the kids, so naturally you're going to take off of work to help, right? His face went white as he blurted out,
What? Why me? I have work.
I don't want to hear about work. What? Were you planning to leave me alone with 3 kids all along?
But I have no choice. If I don't work, we can't make a living, and I can't just take a sudden leave of absence.
Oh, really? So you plan to dump everything on me from the start?
Well, that is...
Never mind. Keep on doing whatever your sister tells you to. After I sharply dismissed him, he clicked his tongue in dissatisfaction. In that moment, my anger surged like a flame. What? How dare he act that way? This whole situation started because he didn't firmly decline in the first place. I can't stand this. I'm not going to be manipulated any longer. I immediately decided to return to my parents' house. So I dialed my mom's number back at home. Hello, Mom? It's me. Oh my, it's been a while. What's up? Well, actually, as I narrated the events of the past few days, my mom's reaction was unexpected. I see, but no, you can't come back here. What? Why? I'm really stressed out with what's happening right now. It's okay. I'm not saying you should handle it all by yourself. I'll come to you. What? What do you mean by I'll come there and straighten out Max and those kids? Any husband who can't take care of his pregnant wife isn't worth a dime. We need to fix his attitude now. But, Mom... Before I could finish my sentence, Mom cheerfully reassured me. It's okay. I won't let you be wronged. Just leave the rest to me. Okay. All right. I'll be there the day after tomorrow. And just like that, the call ended. Although I was worried, the idea of my mom coming over was reassuring. And then, 2 days later came. Earlier than expected, at the crack of dawn at 6 a.m., my sister-in-law left her 3 boys with us. Woken by the loud voices of the children, I stumbled out of bed. I let them into the house, but it didn't take long for them to start arguing. Hey, this is my game. Don't touch it.
Brother hit me.
Auntie, I'm hungry. It was like a war zone. Hold on, all this in just 1 hour of their arrival? Why would the argument start so quickly? Just then, my husband in his sleep woke up.
Okay, take care of the rest.
What? Wait a second. You're still going to dump this situation on me?
I don't have a choice, do I? I have work.
This isn't a joke. Just as I was about to shout at him, the doorbell rang.
I'll get it,
he said, heading for the door as if escaping.
Yes, who is... Huh?
Long time no see, Max.
Mother-in-law?
Saved. Mother has arrived. Max, my husband, seemed confused at the sight of my mother.
Why is my mother-in-law here?
Why do you think? You are not only neglecting Anna, who is pregnant, but also accepting your sister-in-law's children without thinking.
Well...
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll be taking care of the kids for the next 2 weeks. Is that right? You're about to become a father, Max. I won't allow you to just stand by and watch. At Mother's words, Max hastily shouted,
Wait a minute. I have work. And if mother-in-law is here, Anna will surely feel relieved.
What are you talking about? So, if I go home right now, you will take a leave from work and take care of everything?
Well, that is...
Listen, I'm not asking for 2 weeks. Just take a week off on paid leave.
What? Paid leave? For a whole week?
Of course. You're the one who let your sister-in-law dictate to you. Or would you prefer that I take Anna home with me right now?
No. That would be a problem. Okay, I understand. I'll take it. I'll take a week of paid leave.
And so, Max ended up taking a week of paid leave and was tasked with helping Mother take care of the children. Can you boys introduce yourselves? When Mother asked the 3 boys, they started shouting in response.
Who the hell is this old hag? So annoying.
Annoying.
Okay, let's start with learning some manners, shall we? I'll be keeping this game of yours.
Hey, give it back.
Not speaking very nicely, are you? Well, I'll be treating you appropriately then. With a hard glare from Mother, the children let out a small squeak. It's quite something, you know, even if I do say so myself as her daughter, but when my mother gets angry, she's terrifying. When she's mad, she turns into something so fierce you can hardly believe it's the same woman with her normally gentle expression. Plus, my mom used to be an elementary school teacher. There's hardly a better person for handling children. Throughout this time, my mother didn't hesitate to discipline the unruly kids. She made sure they were in bed by 9 p.m. and got them up at 7 a.m. While they were at our place, she set a limit of 1 hour of video games per day. 2 weeks later, I was worried about what would happen, but it all went smoothly. Even the kids who initially disliked my mother gradually started listening to her. We were supposed to send the kids back to my sister-in-law's house that day, but my mother stopped it. Max, I'm taking the kids to your parents' house.
What?
And please invite your sister-in-law to your parents' house too. Is that okay?
Yes, understood.
In these 2 weeks, my husband was entirely reformed by my mother, becoming a more dependable man than before. Max contacted his sister and changed the meeting place to his parents' house. We all headed to Max's parents' house. As soon as we arrived, my sister-in-law, Annie, approached Max with a displeased expression. Max, why on earth are we at your parents' house? I told you to bring them to my place.
Well, my mother-in-law suggested...
What? Mother-in-law? Who the hell's... As Annie raised her voice, my mother greeted her with a bright smile. Nice to meet you. Who are you? I'm Anna's mother. I heard that my daughter has been helping you out. Oh, hello, Anna's mother. Nice to meet you. Why would you dump 3 boys on a pregnant woman for 2 weeks? What on earth were you thinking? What? My mother, who had tried to keep things peaceful, began to directly question Annie, who was attempting to play innocent. Even my mother-in-law, who didn't know the full story, joined in confronting Annie. Hey, Annie, what the hell is going on? You left the kids with Anna, is that true? That is... Do you know Anna is pregnant? Are you aware? No, it's not like that. I just asked Max for a favor. I didn't force it on Anna. The sister-in-law, accused by my mother-in-law, desperately made excuses. Unable to bear the sight, my mother quietly interrupted the conversation. Could you stop this unseemly arguing? Annie, you've experienced pregnancy, right? You understand that even during the second trimester, you can't let your guard down, right? That's... Also, your child doesn't even know how to hold a pencil. Can't show their appreciation for a meal. What kind of education are you providing? Well, I corrected all the points I noticed, but that wasn't for you. It would be the kids who would suffer if they continue as they are. I did it for them. Please don't misunderstand that. Annie's face gradually turned pale and she eventually fell silent. My mother-in-law, who had been listening to the conversation, turned bright red and apologized to my mother, saying, "I'm sorry." Even after that, my mother went on to talk about how she had been disciplining the children with all her might for the past 2 weeks. She took the opportunity to criticize Annie's parenting and even criticized my mother-in-law's way of raising her daughter, Annie, with a hint of sarcasm. By the time my mother finished speaking, both my mother-in-law and Annie were completely exhausted. "I'm truly sorry." They both bowed deeply to my mother. After that, it seems that Annie was severely scolded by my mother-in-law. "What's wrong with you? Because of you, I was humiliated." "But I just wanted a break." "There's a limit, you know. Forcing your kids on pregnant Anna for 2 weeks, that's insane." I'm sorry. I won't do it again." Crying loudly, Annie repeatedly bowed her head. By my mother-in-law's order, she was strictly forbidden to leave the children at our house in the future. Ever since then, my husband has become much more reliable. It's probably thanks to my mother, but I also feel a change in my husband's attitude. "Anna, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize that housework and child rearing were so hard." "It's okay. I'm glad that you understand." "I won't be swayed by my sister anymore. From now on, I will prioritize you, Anna, and act accordingly. You may not trust me right away, but I want you to watch me as I strive to be a good husband and a good father." "Thank you, Max. It's okay now. With him as he is now, I'm sure we can build a happy family." Looking at him, who was staring straight at me, I was convinced of that. After that, a healthy baby was born to us, the couple. My husband has become very fond of children, and he is taking paternity leave and taking care of them earnestly. All of this is thanks to my mother's teachings.